Yeah, we're back.
Seeing the fruition of this ancient prediction, the secret destiny of America as manly.
You have no idea how important you are. We are at the brink. If you're listening to this, you are the resistance.
There is an entity that is awakening.
Hi, boss.
It
Good
is
to
on
see
its
you,
way.
mate.
And from Washington, D.C. To the United Nations, people are dedicated to seeing the fruition of this ancient prediction, the secret destiny of America, as Manly P. Hall called it, right? But to the point of aliens, there has been so much stuff in the news just lately that is, well, what can I say? It's intriguing. It's illuminating. I'm sure that you guys saw where the Marcel grandkid now. There was a big Newsweek article about this just like 3-4 weeks ago now. And they were being interviewed, and they're getting ready to publish Major Marcel, Jesse Marcel's private journal. And they're really only revealing what some of us on the inside have known for a long time. And that is that, when he first went into the crash site in Roswell, New Mexico, 1947, the materials that he recovered there. And then by the very next day, pressure is put on him to take, tinfoil from a balloon and get his picture taken with it to say that that was all that happened in Roswell, was that a weather balloon had crashed. Well, now they are publishing his private journal in which he admits that all of that was a cover-up forced upon him, but that in fact, what he had witnessed that day and what he had saw, what he had recovered, was absolutely not something that was from this world. Now, it's interesting because, Marcel was no Johnny come lately. He was a decorated intelligence officer in 1947. Even more than that, maybe stationed at the 509th Bomber Group, which at the time was the only atomic bomb unit, maybe in the entire world, certainly in the United States, in New Mexico. And all of a sudden, this mysterious crash occurs in the desert outside of Roswell. And Major Marcel is chosen to go there to investigate the site and then to report back to his superior, Colonel Blanchard. Well, now, according to these grandkids who are going to publish his private journal, we're going to find out exactly what happened there that day. And they say it was remarkable, definitely not made by human hands, and that secretly they knew this for a long time anyway, because as the grandkids, they grew up, right, being told that their grandfather had broken protocol by bringing home some of the debris, which he showed to his son and his wife before returning to the Army base, which included these strange beams with like hieroglyphic looking writing that would appear if you turn and looked at them at a certain angle. Now, to the bigger picture, though, Stephen Doug, what this kind of reminds me of what is Operation Paperclip, which I know you guys are both very familiar with. If there are people listening to this program that do not know what that was about, it was a secret program following the end of World War II. And so while you had many Germans who were being tried in Nuremberg for war crimes, secretly, the United States government brought in approximately 1,600 of the top intelligentsia, the scientists, the other ones that were working for the war machine under Adolf Hitler and the Third Reich. And so they bring these guys in. Included among them is Werner von Braun, who is brought here. They're secretly working for the United States, but they're in the last couple of years with some of these artifacts with the previously top secret documents that have been dumped as a result of the CIA and so on, opening up more about what was going on with all of our investigations into UFOs and so-called aliens and all of that. We've now found that there are documents that show that President Harry Truman, more likely than not, sent Werner von Braun into the desert there in New Mexico to also look at some of the debris that was there. And this was happening as a result of the intelligence information that was being sent over to Harry Truman, who didn't even have all of the information because the president gets a need to know. But
good to see you back, though.
Based on the material information from the crash site, he sends Werner von Braun over there to say, can you tell us what this is? And maybe the question in Truman's mind might have been, is this like something that the Nazis were working on? Because we here in the U.S. certainly don't even know what we are looking at. But another document suggests that Truman also had von Braun looking at the so-called alien bodies. And so we are only just now getting some information dating back at least to the 1940s and before, suggesting to us that something else here was really going on. And I don't know if you guys know this, but I was actually personal friends with Colonel Jesse Marcel. And Jesse has sat in our home. He's told me and Nita, he's dead now, but he told me and Nita on numerous occasions about that night when he's home, he's asleep, and all of a sudden his dad comes home, Major Marcel.
Well, you're making the camera wrong. Stop scratching that.
And he wakes Jesse Marcel Jr. up and Jesse's mom, and he's showing them this material. He's mystified by it. He's never seen anything like it before. And I will tell you this, Jesse Marcel Jr.'s story never changed. Never changed. From day one, what he said he saw is the same thing that he was saying that he saw when he died a couple of years ago. And that goes along with what his grandkids are saying now, these strange eye beams that look like they had something maybe similar to, they weren't Egyptian hieroglyphics, but these very alien, strange-looking things. He told me and Nita how you could take a hammer and you could hit this bar as hard as you wanted. You could not put a dent in it. And yet you could bend it with your hands, but it had some kind of memory in it so that when you let it go, it would go right back to its original formation. Now, Marcel Jr., of course, grew up. He became a colonel. And actually, the last few years that he was alive, he told me several stories about, he was a pilot. So he was still flying in as a medic and going into some of these places where soldiers were being hurt. And he was just serving in the military as a medic, even though he had retired. He was still doing some of that kind of stuff. His story never changed. I was also close to Stanton Friedman, the original civilian investigator into Roswell. His story never changed. And Steve, you and I are both, to this day, personal friends with Gary Stearman. And Stearman, of course, from the famous Stearman Aircraft Company that sold out to Boeing during World War II. The aircraft they built was the aircraft of choice for training rookie pilots how to fly during World War II. But after they sold out, Gary, I'm not sure how much of this he's talked about publicly, and there are definitely things he's told us both privately that we can't talk about on the radio. But one thing he has admitted was that after they sold out, especially one of his uncles, was solicited by the U.S. government, and even though he had sold out and tried to retire, he went back. They took him into doing skunk works projects for the United States government, which did include, I'll put it this way, the back engineering exotic craft. Well, all of that storyline that you and I have known about for some time now, all of a sudden now with the dump of all of this data and information is coming out, and we're learning there's a lot of documents to substantiate and to undergird some of the even more exotic details of those events dating back to Operation Paperclip, the 1940s, and the crash site at Roswell, New Mexico. But now I think, Steve, it's getting ready to go to a whole new place. I do believe that we are in the lead up to so-called official disclosure right now. And I even personally believe, now this is not something, Steve, you and I have even talked about, and you might not even agree. I personally believe that we have entered a countdown, and somewhere around the year
I'm not tired, so I don't even know why I yawned.
2025. So we've got 4 years of the Biden administration, and everybody there, Nancy Pelosi and all the rest of them, are doing everything they can do to refill the swamp. But we are definitely dedicated, I think, on a trajectory to a countdown that I personally believe sometime around the year 2025 is going to result in catastrophic situations that's going to bring the world to their knees, including quite possibly what we would call the arrival of alien intelligence.
I would like to say this.
Well, he's saying 2025.
And Tom, I'll be addressing the glyphs that were on the crashes, and I'm saying that plural, of a lot of the different things, even beyond Roswell. I was informed that there were 65 crashes. And as you know, you made the statement moments ago that there were, if you will, almost like hieroglyphics. Well, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to ask Eric, and if you would, Eric, if you would be so kind to put up the flying saucer with the crop circle on it. And I'll tell a story. For 2 years, I've been funding and kind of in the background with a group of scientists, renegade scientists around the world, many who are running for their lives, to get a glyptionary and to begin to put all the different glyphs together. Some are very repetitious. We've taken close to 100,000. I think the total now is 48,000 glyphs. And ladies and gentlemen, I want to show that if I can. Eric, it's the one with the crop circle on the top. It's called the Rosetta Stone of crop circles.
Right, we're talking about.
Okay, the point that I want to make is, for the last 3 weeks, I had my gentleman who's, there you go, thank you, who's a Mexican, probably one of the smartest, brightest men I've ever known. He's been combing 800 square miles and basically visiting the original Aztec/alien site.
It's glaring, guys. Hang on.
I basically, ladies and gentlemen, have never seen this crop circle image. I remember seeing symbols like it. That happens to be the symbol of Lucifer. And what's been interesting, that in all of the control panels that we're finding and matching glyphs, we're finding the names of fallen angels. Now, even the Book of Enoch talks about it. And Tom, I want you to know, I'm being very guarded in what I say, because I want to prepare the people of God for the great
that didn't work.
deceptions is coming. I made a statement,
Focus.
and I hate to use the me, but again, I felt the Lord really put this on my heart. I believe disclosure is already underway with the Navy's admission of the patent for the TR-3 Bravo, the triangular-shaped craft, with each intersecting point of the angles of a triangle being a light using electrogravitic propulsion. Even on the front of Drudge today, they're talking about, speeds beyond what we can now use. Well, the reverse engineering. So the symbol that you guys are seeing right now, that is one of 1,500. I want everybody to hear this. 1,500 images that are in my possession. 1,500.
Steve, the world's never seen this before.
No, these are, and let me share a word, provenance. Provenance means, you actually see the
I'm trying to
artifacts come
focus
out
the
of
camera,
ground.
guys.
The movies that have been taken.
I can't do
in other
anything
words,
about it.
farmhouse has been established. But I told Tom, he said, interesting thing, Tom, archaeologists from multiple countries are down in Mexico, and also a billionaire who I do not know. By the way, it's not Gary Haven. God bless Gary for all the support he's given us over the years. But down there, buying these artifacts up because he knows what they mean. My team, 2 men, basically went to the known location of this item after it was found. And lo and behold, the Mexican military has it secured, okay, with roadblocks and everything. So they basically cut through the jungle and went a different way to another
I can't get rid of the glare, guys. I sort of have a bit.
I want people to understand this, that this, what you're seeing right here, all the little, it seems like design pieces all have meaning. Now, hey, Eric, if you can go to the next one down, or the fourth one down, people have been looking at crop circles. Now, I'm talking about the real ones that are made, not the ones that people make, you know, with ropes and with, what we just say, you know, plank boards, and they make geometric progressions and stuff. So, Tom, I'll just leave it like this, is that I believe, based on the amount of foreign archaeologists and foreign military spec ops, and I made the statement, special operations from all the countries of the world, whether it's Russia, whether it's the United States, whether it's Germany, whether it's France, whether you can name a country, and they've got people looking for this. I also made the statement that, in my opinion, Mexico will be the first country to break, if you will, the stranglehold of the U.S. government on all antiquities relating to aliens around the world. It's estimated that out of multiple sites, by my guys who visited some of the, if you will, warehouses, that they said there's over, that they know, 25,000 artifacts from over 800 square miles with the alien Aztec theme. Now, hey, Eric, and this is important. Can you put up the piece that Daniel Holdings blew up for me? Tom, you've been at Branson when I talked about, obviously, the planet Rahab. And the planet Rahab was a planet between the orbit of Mars and Jupiter. It was called Lucifer's planet. And Lucifer's planet, Tom, we found, if you will, a panel, and I didn't find it. My team found it. I haven't been to Mexico. I don't travel much anymore. But I have guys that have, how should I say this, stones of titanium that go into some of the roughest places in the world. And because they're Mexican nationals, they can get in there, and they can also get into Latin America. So what was found was literally the description inscribed, engraved, if you will, scrimshawed onto a special kind of slate, showing the alien pyramids, showing that the aliens created them and created them. They're taking credit, and you know, there's so many images. But the thing is, on the very left-hand side of the panel, it showed Rahab, the planet, cracking up, and Stargate tunnels going to the Earth and going other places. So what we're finding, okay, we're finding that all of these images, and so far 48,000 of them, talk about specifically celestial points, and that's the key in the crop circles.
Hey, Steve.
Hey,
Steve, I'm going to interrupt you. I apologize for interrupting. The image that you sent is, there's no image. It's a blank file.
It's okay. What we're going to do, Doug, is, well, I'm going to send you a link to do this. I'm going to turn it over to Tom because he's time sensitive. So I do not mean to be argumentative. All I'm saying is this: based on what the different archaeologists and those who are digging up these artifacts are talking about, is they believe disclosures coming on.
Hey, Vast, on the stream I done a couple of minutes ago, I had a whistleblower and he brought up Pine Gap, how it's a full-on CIA military base.
Faster pace. And here's something, Doug, I want all of your listeners to understand. This will be exclusively available to your benefactors, the people that are going to call in and support you. they will get this written report, and they'll be given some stuff that's just mind-boggling that no human being has seen for the last 500 to 700 years. And so it's important that people understand this. I once was told, then I turned over to Tom, that the #1 activity of special operations in Ultra Black is to find the alien artifacts, the alien weapons, and to control the stargates, which are all over the planet, which Tom wrote about in the Ahriman Gate. And as I've said before, almost 15 years ago, Tom, you're the one that mentioned the gates of hell in stargates, and I never put that together as much as I've written. So thank you, my beloved friend and brother. So I'll turn it right back over to you, because again, here's the thing. There's so much coming out, and I want people to know what happened when Buzz Aldrin was taken out of Antarctica, who some of the very prominent politicians have gone to. And just to clear up about hell and the devil, Lucifer's lair, you'll see how important the name Lucifer is. So go ahead, Tom.
Well, so first of all, I want to ask you something, Steve, because you said this very quickly in passing, and I want to make sure that the audience and I actually have clarity on this. You said something about you're going to be giving, is it like a special report, and it's got these images, and you're giving that exclusively to the people that will make a donation of whatever size to help
Hi, Khalid Muhammad. Welcome to the channel.
with the funding the Hagman report? Is that what you just said?
Absolutely, and I'll put a number on it, okay? Just simply because, and again, this is my Thanksgiving to Doug. Absolutely, and anybody that gives over $50, because here's the thing, ladies and gentlemen, this is about, just like the information that I'm talking about, no one's ever seen it before. No one's ever talked about it. I was even, how should I say this, quietly rebuked at Branson by one of the speakers saying, well, that's all fake. Well, no offense, he didn't know what he was talking about. So the thing is that I want people to understand that the images will be in this report, a special Antarctica report, and this is exclusively for those of you who donate to Doug. I'll have it in PDF form. It'll go out to you on your email. And again, everybody who's supported Doug, thank you. And I want you to know you are responsible for the great and financing one of the most amazing harvests around the world. Tom, I get emails, as you do, from people that are in the most obscure places in the world saying they have questions about UFOs, Bigfoot, aliens, all the paranormal, supernatural stuff. And they said, when you put it in the biblical context, it was like God took the veil off the eyes. If Jesus said men's hearts are going to fail for looking after those things coming upon the earth, then I don't believe Jesus is just tossing out stuff, to keep his redeemed busy. So, Tom, I want to thank you for clarifying that one last time. For anybody who donates $50 and above, you guys will be getting a PDF of the images that no one has seen today. And I'll even have Eric, before the show is over, put up the horned, H-O-R-N-E-D skulls. So, Tom, take it from there.
Yeah, so I will let people know that are listening to this broadcast. I've seen a bunch of these images secretly. Steve Quayle has shared them with me. They've never been made public. It absolutely blew my mind. I would also say that it definitely does substantiate much of, again, what we're getting even from government document dumps right now, support what you're going to see visually, but that have never been a part of any. You can't go online and type in, CIA, UFO document dump. You're not going to get these images, but they all do substantiate one another. Now I'm gonna press you again, Steve. You mentioned the number of images. So you said there's at one point you said 100,000, then you said like 45,000. I've seen dozens of them. So I don't know what all is in this report. You mentioned, and I love this term, by the way. You called it a glyptionary. I can't even say the word. A glyptionary. Are you going to be producing anything that has like all tens of thousands of these images?
It's physically impossible. I'm going to be showing, and And thank you, Tom, for clarifying. God gave you a wonderful linear mind. I don't share that, you know. And by the way, ladies and gentlemen, without any flattery, I think Tom has been such a blessing to both Doug and I because he's opened up the world's eyes to what's coming down with the Vatican, etc., as it relates to aliens. You will see, ladies and gentlemen, at least a dozen to 24 different species of aliens that no one's ever seen. As a matter of fact, if you blow my mind, I've seen a lot of stuff I've never released. But what you're going to see is just astonishing panels. And I'm going to make a statement too. When you get the PDF, and I'm not kidding, you must literally say, Lord, show me what you want me to see, but I cover my eyes and my head with the blood of Jesus.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm serious, ladies and gentlemen. This isn't like, holy calisthenics. It's because a lot of it, and here's my dilemma, Tom, a lot of it is so supernaturally evil. I will not be putting that in. I pray, ladies and gentlemen, I say, Lord, just help me to help your people to understand that when you say people's heart's going to fail, and here's the bottom line. The thing that I'm going to share with you is so contrary that it's going to be hard to take. That's why I'm saying I want you to cover your eyes and say, Lord, I cover my eyes with the blood of Jesus. I cover my mind with the blood of Jesus. And for the faint of heart, I'm saying this with all my heart. I just had an email from a lady saying she's terrified to go for walks in the woods because Bigfoot might get her and eat her. That's not what the purpose of this stuff is. It's not to titillate. It's not to go, look at how cool this stuff is. It's pretty cool. But to put it in the context of alien disclosure. And Tom, I was on record years ago saying the countries, or the country that has the gumption to break free of the United States control over buying the countries off that have all these artifacts, including Egypt. The bottom line is that country is going to take the preeminence on the world stage. And my prayer for all of our brethren and our friends in Mexico is they get the absolute, I would say this, they get the benefit and the, what's the word I want? The acknowledgement, okay, of what they've done. And I'll say this, ladies and gentlemen, I'm a student of anthropology, I'm a student of archaeology. And I know a lot of stuff, but I've never seen stuff like this that ties the building of the pyramids literally to the aliens, that ties human sacrifice literally to the aliens. And Tom, the time frame on some of the glyphs goes back literally hundreds of thousands of years. So go ahead. It's going to be worth donating to Doug Hagman and to keep his platform on the air.
Yeah, and here's the deal. So people will get this imagery from you, which the world has never seen before. But then,
this is a year old, guys.
All of a sudden, people remember when you woke up on 911 early in the morning, and you went in, and all of a sudden, everywhere, every newscast was something's going on. We don't know what's happening. These planes are crashing, and buildings are burning down in New York, and everybody froze in their tracks. Well, that's going to pale by comparison to the soon coming event when you wake up one morning and the President of the United States, the Pope, the President of Britain are standing in the well of the United Nations, and they're saying, we have an announcement to make. We are in contact with extraterrestrial intelligence. Or you wake up and it's Independence Day. And the whole world's going to be frozen in their tracks. But then, Steve, when they see the entities and they match these images that you're going to be making available to people, they're going to say, I saw that. Steve Quayle shared this with us on the Hagman Report. And they won't be taken unaware. They won't be caught off guard. And so I'm very thankful for that. Now, I want to join you in helping Doug. So what we're doing right now, this week only, and we're doing this for the Hagman Report, but we're featuring the biggest giveaway of books and video presentations ever. So we're giving away like $1,000 in videos and ebooks with my new book, The Messenger. And here's how that works. for a limited time, every person that goes to our skywatchtvstore.com, and you see the messenger package, for every person that makes a donation to support the Hagman Report, I am, Doug, I'm going to personally assure that everybody that goes there and they make a donation, they get the messenger package. I'm going to personally assure that at least $5,000 is sent to you this week, because we're going to give you a portion of every sale. If it's under, if the portion is under 5,000, I'm just going to make sure it's 5,000. What I would love to see is for that to be a whole lot more, because people are going to get $1,000 in free books and videos and whatever by making a $35 donation for the messenger package. We're going to be sending a percentage to you. I hope that it's a lot more, but if it's less than that, we are going to at least send you $5,000 this week. Now, in addition to that, I would beg people to match that. I would beg people to do that. I know that there are people out there right now, Doug and Steve, that could click on the donate button on HagmanReport.com and they could send you $1,000, $5,000, $10,000 or more. I also know that every senior citizen out there that can only give $5 or $10 can also be a blessing by going to HagmanReport.com. Right up at the top, you'll see the donate button. There's 3 different ways. Once you click on that, there's 3 different ways that you can give, including PayPal, that you can make a donation to support the Hagman Report and Doug Hagman. And once again, there are things that Steve and I know that Doug has been facing that he's not going to talk about because he's a very humble man and it's just not what he does. But folks, this man has been such a blessing, not only to me and Steve, but to the world as an independent investigator, a journalist, an independent broadcaster. The world has never needed Doug Hagman more than they need him today. And you all know, if you're paying any attention at all, you all know how much pressure conservative investigators and commentators are under right now. The threat constantly of being deplatformed and hated by the new elite leaders of modern Oceania. 1984 George Orwell. We are there, and they are combing through every comment that is made by anybody. And if it does not line up with what they want, there's an enormous amount of pressure on you to try to shut you down, stop the way that you're even receiving any kind of revenue or even being able to survive. So please, if you go to skywatchtvstore.com, make the $35 donation for the messenger package. You're going to get over $1,000 of free stuff, but you're going to know that in every one of those, a portion of that is going to Doug Hagman, and Tom Horn is giving you his word that it's going to be at least $5,000 this week. I would love for it to be $50,000, but whatever it is, we're going to send it to Doug Hagman, or make a $50 donation. You're going to get the special report from Steve Quayle that the world has never seen, or go to HagmanReport.com, click on the donate button and make a donation. But whatever you can do, please, I don't care if it's $5 or $50,000, please help Doug Hagman. And I know, by the way, I know that Doug's having a hard time sitting there right now just listening to us say this because he is a very humble person. He does not beg for money. He does not do any of those things. But I guarantee you that it has cost him a lot to be the man that he is. And, well, Steve Quayle and I understand this too, right? We too have basically the world against us right now. So we understand what Doug's doing and where he's coming from. And listen, America, you have a chance right now, and you may not have that tomorrow, because the agencies that want to shut down people like Doug Hagman are very powerful, and now they have been enthroned from Washington, D.C. to the United Nations to the Build Back Better groups to the Great Reset, World Economic Forum. They have been empowered to put people like Doug Hagman out of business. You, America, can make a difference. Please do that. I beg you to do it.
Well, and also, Tom, I will match the 5,000 that you'll match. And I mean, just point blank, ladies and gentlemen, I want to thank all of you that have been his Patreon supporters, those of you who have, and some of you have given great money, especially a couple people that helped us with our exorbitant legal fees. I won't call you out by name, but God bless you. I want to thank, some very, very generous people. And ladies and gentlemen, here's what you don't hear. We don't tell you what goes on in the background because, it just takes away from what's going on. But I remember Tom's house got burned down. And, immediately after talking with Tom on the phone, he got a call, I believe, from the sheriff saying the popping sounds were blah, 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 electrical outlets or something. Correct me if I'm wrong, Tom, because you had received information from someone upon many of the antiquities that were found in a certain museum in Iraq. And I want everyone to know, at that time period, I was involved, independent of Tom, with a group that was seeking out Gilgamesh. Now, there were fake stories and there were real stories. But more than that, there were control units for the stargates. The stargates are a real phenomenon. Just think of Jacob's ladder, or just think of the, how do I say this? The area that everyone's wanted to cover up. And now we're talking about messenger RNA. Well, the word for messenger is angel. So Tom and I have been talking about the extraction of DNA from basically giants and hybrids and mythological beings that basically were taken from these entities to initiate into the super soldier program. When we first started talking about that, people thought we were crazy. I think and Doug's admitted it, this isn't a statement, but Doug's admitted, Steve, I thought you were so far out there that I forget what you said, Doug, but you thought I was far out there. And the thing is that if it weren't for God giving to Tom Horn, if it weren't for God giving Doug the platform he's given, if it weren't for the stuff that, I've said this before, Tom is on one track, I'm on the other track, but we show up at the same destination. And I want everybody to understand this, put it into a political point. By God warning you of the great alien deception, of God warning you guys through the writings of Tom, through the writings of me, and for what I'm going to show you, the thing that's critical and absolutely important is to allow you, the people of God, the people that love the Lord Jesus Christ, the people that want honest answers, that ye be not deceived. That's the whole point of everything Tom Horn writes. That's the whole point of everything I write, or videos I produce, or the videos Skywatch does. And so
Didn't L.A. Missouri's house burn down as well? And he lost a lot of elongated skulls and that? I think it did.
We're saying to you guys, thank you so much for absolutely standing with Doug Hagman, for allowing guests like me, guests like Tom to come on. And you're literally, and this isn't, I'll say it, this isn't BS. This is absolute an outreach to the corners of the world. I got people in Australia that say thank you and Doug, or people that always put Tom and I, and Tom, this is funny. Hey, I just watched a video of you and Tom Horn. They don't realize one of them's 15 years old, but God is still using the anointing on that. Go ahead, sir.
Yeah, and so, Steve, according to the Bible, according to the book of Enoch, according to other ancient texts, those stargates that you just mentioned, they don't only open, stuff comes through them.
Yes.
And the things about these glyphs that you sent me, because again, I've been privileged to be able to see some of this before the fact. I saw many of, and you did, you have to, many of those same images in what the ancients drew in petroglyphs and other statues, paintings around the world. So it's not like this is a new thing. It's that we are moving back into the days of Noah, which Jesus said would happen just before his second coming. And it doesn't only, it does include some things that kind of look like modern alien greys and that kind of reptilians, reptoids. And you can find those like you and I did, Steve, when we went and met with the leaders of the 4 different nations, the Pueblo Indians, in the 4 corners area of the United States, and we were given unprecedented access to go into areas that are locked up, actually. We had to have people that came in from the Parks Department with keys to open gateways. And remember those steep canyon wall things that we had to climb down? I mean, this was scary stuff, right? To get down into those areas that were closed off, that people cannot. You can.
Vast, did you know the Pope visited? He visited a ziggurat in Iran about 9 or 10 months ago.
Just drive up into the 4 corners and go to the ancient Anasazi ruins and get into these areas. But we were given unprecedented access, and when we went down into those areas,
wow, Vast,
some of
that's
the drawings
crazy
and stuff, the cave drawings, the petroglyphs, they reminded me very much of versions of some of, not all, but some of the images and stuff that you sent me that people are going to get when they make a donation to support Doug Hagman. But it didn't just include aliens, also cryptids, like images of giants, massive giants, right? And 6-toed giants and the reptilian entity that, the Navajos told us about, Dr. Don Mose and so on. Things that, that would remind us of Bigfoot. Now, why am I also bringing that up? Well, because this week, Robert Bigelow, right? He just now got a contract with the Defense Intelligence Agency after a senior scientist visited the Skinwalker Ranch, as we've discussed in the past. This is in the news this week, and it says that he was confronted by a, quote, highly unusual unknown intelligence, end quote. Now, this was reported by Mystery Wire that reported this week, quote, that aerospace entrepreneur Robert Bigelow revealed that he's just created BASS, which is a subsidiary of his Bigelow Aerospace, and that BASS has entered into a partnership with one of the U.S. Government agencies. And what's their purpose? To study, kind of warm up the world, if you will, to the idea of UFOs, related phenomenon, and so on. And if people can read the Mystery Wire article, but it goes into the public not knowing at the time, but the reason Bigelow got this contract, he signed a contract with the Defense Intelligence Agency to carry out investigations into, the Advanced Aerospace Weapons System Application Program. He got that because one of the U.S. government intelligence officers was confronted, I guess you would say, had a highly unusual encounter with an unknown intelligence at Skinwalker Ranch. Now, Bigelow, he was the owner of Skinwalker Ranch for some years, I think up until about 2016. Now, for people that don't know what I'm talking about, Skinwalker Ranch is located approximately 480 or so acres in just outside of Ballard, Utah. It's allegedly the site of very substantial skinwalker activity, which Steve Quayle and I talk a lot about in our best-selling book, Unearthing the Lost World.
Okay, that's them guys, not me. Give it a minute.
Of the Skinwalker, and it takes its name from all this, Native American legend about these skinwalkers that sometimes can come across like werewolves or ghost-like aspirations and so on. But but this goes back to something more than just Native American folklore. In the 2000s, there were these claims about this ranch. It first appeared actually in the Utah Deseret News, later in the Las Vegas Mercury, during that series of very riveting articles that were written by George Knapp. And subsequently, his book titled Hunt for the Skinwalker came out and described how the ranch was acquired by the now defunct National Institute for Discovery Science. That was owned by Bigelow. And they had purchased that property to study anecdotal sightings of UFOs, Bigfoot-like creatures, crop circles, glowing orbs, poltergeist activity, all of that that was being reported, not just by the property owners, but all of the ranchers and stuff roundabout were reporting all of the same stuff. Some of these were born-again Christians that, members of their local churches and board members and all that, but they were saying this really is going on. We don't have a clue why, but this is happening. It's very strange, and some of it's bleeding over into these neighboring ranches. So, Knapp goes there. He writes this article, "Is the Utah Ranch the Strangest Place on Earth?" And he tells some of the frightening events that had left the owners of the ranch befuddled and actually broke. So everything from bizarre bulletproof wolf things to their prize-winning cattle winding up overnight, mutilated, dozens of them. Other animals on properties nearby disappearing, being obliterated overnight. So all these events were being accompanied up before 2000 and up into 2000, and that's why Bigelow bought that place, because he wanted to study, what's going on here. And by the way, they were able to record weird, strong odors, ghostly wrappings on vehicles, these strange lights that are just kind of materializing out of nowhere, opening into gateways that look like vortexes, violent nightmares, not just by the former property owners, but by the people at Bigelow's. And in there, some of these were government officials. Terrible nightmares, paranormal phenomena, and then, of course, the residents around the country making similar reports. It was a guy, Junior Hicks, a retired local school teacher living in the area. He literally cataloged more than 400 anomalies in the nearby communities before the year 2000. And he and others talking about how, as far as anybody could remember, that part of Utah had been the site of unexplained activity, from things that people might call UFO sightings to Sasquatch manifestations. It was literally as if a gateway to the world of the beyond existed within that basin. I'm telling you this because Steve mentioned Stargates as being connected to the report that he's going to send you, the entities that move in and out of these realities. This is biblical, and it is also historical. It does, in fact, happen. It actually explains, by the way, why do people see the Loch Ness Monster? Why do they see Bigfoot? Why do they see cryptid creatures? Sometimes even get a glimpse, maybe a picture, and then they're gone. How can that possibly be, right? Well, it's because they're other dimensional. They move in and out of this reality, and that is a biblical concept. Now, in one example at Skinwalker that was reported by Knapp, there was this investigator there named Chad Deacon, and the ranch owner that was with him. They saw this mysterious light. Here's a real quick quote. Both men watched intently as the light grew brighter. It was as if someone had opened a window or a doorway. The ranch owner grabbed his night vision binoculars to get a better look, but could hardly believe what he was seeing. The dull light began to resemble a bright portal, and at one end of the portal, a large black humanoid figure seemed to be struggling to crawl through the tunnel of light. After a few minutes, the humanoid figure wriggled out of the light and took off into the darkness. As it did, the window of light snapped shut as if someone had flicked off an off switch, end quote. So this just sounds like people making up stuff, right? This is Steven Spielberg or a horror fiction writer, like writing a story. Except the problem is these were government officials who were there hired by Bigelow, and they are reporting only what they, and by the way, these guys, Steve, as you know, these guys had the bejeebers scared out of them, and they're huddling in the darkness, and these are top qualified military personnel. These are guys that have backgrounds as, Marines and so on. They have no clue what they are even looking at. So in 1996, Skinwalker Ranch, it's purchased by Robert Bigelow, this wealthy Las Vegas businessman that founded NIDS and now is getting these new contracts with the United States government agencies. He bought it to serve as a clearing house for scientific investigations into fringe science, paranormal, topics, ufology, going on, joined by high-ranking military officials, including retired U.S. Army Colonel John Alexander, who actually worked to develop remote viewing and psychic experiments for the military during Project Stargate. Remember that? That was the project by the government that was later made into a movie and a book called The Men Who Stare at Ghosts. There were also former police detectives, scientists, including Eric W. Davis, that worked for NASA, and so on. So Bigelow, he goes there. He donates $3.7 million to the University of Nevada at Las Vegas for the creation and continuation of a program that's going to study what Steve Quayle is going to be revealing to you. Because these people, first of all, they don't believe in Jesus, they don't believe in prophecy, so they are befuddled by what it is that they are looking at. And why are so many highly qualified, respectable individuals who know that they can put their career, right, literally on the chopping block by talking about this kind of stuff, but why are they willing to talk about it? Well, for the same reason that Major Marcel was told to cover up the story, but in his private journal, talked about what actually really happened in Roswell in 1947, and now all of that is coming out. It's because there really honestly is something, a phenomenon that is transpiring. It happened in the past, but according to Matthew 24:37, it's going to happen again. As it was in the days of Noah, so shall it also be at the coming of the Son of Man. These entities are real, and they have an interest in the future, of course, of the nation. And much of what they do for us would be interpreted as like altered states of consciousness, like near-death stuff, extrasensory perception, whatever, because it's too mysterious for the secular or normal mind to even begin to understand. One other quick quote here, and then I'll throw this back over to you, Steve. The Las Vegas Mercury reported in November of 2002 at Skinwalker Ranch, quote, one witness reported a path of displaced water in the farm canal, as if a large unseen animal. Let me jump off this for a moment. End quote. I'm talking here about the investigations that were transpiring while Bigelow owned Skinwalker Ranch and had all this military personnel and government employees there recording what it was they were seeing. Okay, back in to the quote. One witness reported a path of displaced water in the farm canal as if a large unseen animal was briskly moving through the water. There were distinct splashing noises, and there was a foul, pungent odor that filled the air, but nothing could be seen. A neighboring rancher reported the same phenomenon. The ranch owners reported that several instances where something invisible moved through their cattle, splitting the herd. The other neighbors reported the same thing, end quote. And yet for all the anomalous incidents at the ranch, This is the one that took the prize. I want to quote it too, and then I'll stop. On the evening of March 12, 1997, barking dogs alerted the NIDS team. These are the government people working for Bigelow at the ranch. Alerted the team that something strange was in a tree near the ranch house. So the ranch owner, he grabs a hunting rifle, he jumps in the pickup, he races towards the tree, and two of the NIDS staffers followed him in a second truck. Now, Knapp tells us what happened next. Quote, up in the tree branches, they could make out a huge set of yellowish reptilian eyes. The head of this animal had to be 3 feet wide, they guessed. At the bottom of the tree was something else. Gorman described it as huge and hairy, with massively muscled front legs and a dog-like head, end quote. Now, this Gorman that they're talking about was a crack shot. He fires at both of these figures from a distance of 40 yards. The creature on the ground immediately vanishes. The thing in the tree appears to fall to the ground because Gorman hears it landing heavily in the patches of snow. All three men run through the pasture and scrub brush, chasing what they thought actually was a wounded animal, but they never found the animal. They saw no blood either. A professional tracker was brought in the next day to scour the area. He didn't find anything either. But there was a physical clue that was left behind. At the bottom of the tree, they created, like forensic scientists do, like CSI people do. They poured the substance in there and collected the footprint. It was a weird footprint, a rather, maybe better said, a claw print. The print left in the snow was from something very large. It had 3 digits with what they guessed were sharp claws on the end. And then they did a scientific analysis. And the analysis and the comparison of the print led them to one chilling conclusion. The print from the ranch very closely resembled a velociraptor, an extinct dinosaur made famous in the Jurassic Park films. So here's the question. Was that the same entity that has now led Bigelow to get a major contract with the Defense Intelligence Agency after a senior scientist from the government visited Skinwalker Ranch recently and had a, quote, highly unusual encounter with an unknown intelligence? Frankly, I don't know. It sounds like it possibly could be, but it doesn't really even matter. Something very strange is going on. Our government is aware of it. Bigelow is very aware of it. And Steve, when you sent me those images that you're giving away now for people that will support Doug Hagman, it very much, to me, confirmed what these secularists who don't even believe in Jesus or demons or anything else, what they believe that they're dealing with, and they're befuddled by it.
Well, and again, Tom, that's what I've set out to do, and I believe the Lord led me to do this. Some of the images on some of the Aztec alien artifacts literally show the Egyptian god Anubis. They show bipedal, if you will, combination, what everybody thought was mythological. They show the crocodile head on a human. They show, and I believe that's why God brought the destruction on the fallen angel world that preceded Genesis 1:1 and 1:2 and the creation of man in God's image. But what's interesting, ladies and gentlemen, why this is so important to you, my emails are accelerating with people, especially Christians. They love Jesus, they pray, but having unusual creature, or what Tom is calling cryptid run-ins, okay? And also there's another, I think a History Channel show or one of those Discovery Channel shows on Blind Frog Ranch, which just happens to be in the vicinity of, I believe it's south of Skinwalker Ranch. And in the last episode, they showed literally a guy levitating and being bent backwards at just about, I'd say, 35 to 40 degree angle. And hey, Eric, now do you have the picture of the horned skulls? I sent it to you at Tech Eric. Do you have that one? It's really critical. Okay, would you put it up, please?
All right, stand by.
Thank you.
All right, and folks, if you're just tuning in, Steve Quayle, Tom Horn, God bless Tom Horn, God bless Steve Quayle. SkywatchTVStore.com, SkywatchTVStore.com. Messenger package there is we're fixing to put up the image, and let me know when it's ready. What's that? It's coming.
Okay. One of the things that's one of the things that people understand. There you go. There and ladies and gentlemen, there are 12 variations of that skull. We also have a cyclopean skull. Now, what's interesting is Cyclops are what's attributed to building the great underground tunnel system of the world. And all of these, as you can see, the multiplicity, for the record, one of those teeth is being analyzed right now. The owner of it has passed on a tooth, and because of the nature of this world of these type of artifacts and stuff, there are rogue scientists that are doing DNA study. I think this is important, Tom, for everybody to find out. All the, if you will, Western DNA labs that can check out the, if you will, the origin, what the species was, or non-species, all of those labs are tied into the Central Intelligence Agency or the National Security Agency. This horned skull is similar to the Star Child. The Star Child's a little more deformed, and the horns are a little bit more angular. But ladies and gentlemen, somebody says, "Oh, that's just fake." No, some of the skulls still have the dirt that was dug out of them in the last couple weeks, at least maybe 3 weeks. Because again, most people will not believe this until it's too late. The supernatural events happening around here. One of the men who went down there, Tom, this is no kidding. The Lord said, "Before I release to you this knowledge," this wasn't me, this is my guy, the head of the expedition. He said, "I want you to be in prayer for the next, I think, 8 months. This is 8 months ago. And I want you to seek me in your word, because you will need the strength. You will need the strength," he told this to my friend Jesse, "to stand up against the evil that is around this place." That's why I'm choosing, Doug. This will be one of the images along with the others. I think we've got so far close to 24 alien species that people have never seen before. Some of them do reference, for instance, the reptoids or reptilians. Some of them look like anteater people. And some of them are just so far out there that, you know, you just, I gotta tell you something. As many of these artifacts as I've seen over the years, actually, that's not a good statement, over the decades, they're mind-blowing. And again, when people look to a science fiction with whatever creation, creatures, cryptoids, aliens they build, those images, I believe, are being projected in a, if you will, almost a telepathic way. This isn't psychic, or it's this. It's the, if you will, the entities within certain people, I'm talking demons, are expressing their nature and character through the humans. And you've watched some of the politicians change their eyes, change the slits like a reptile. And for the record, Tom, I had multiple emails. I even posted, I think when I was at Branson, one of the last conferences where we had it in person, I posted literally velociraptors with wings that were seen by eyewitnesses. And my friend Greg Simcow, fabulous concept artist, those are there for people. I'll also include some of those, Doug, because people got to understand. You've just heard Tom Horn. You know, obviously it's Saturday.
Good to see you.
Saturday, you know, that people got to understand with the 6th. And Tom Horn just talked about velociraptors, and I'll say something interesting. The feet on the different statues, statuettes, creatures, inscribed creatures, some of these things that look like a cross between alien and skeleton man or Skeletor, are absolutely telling and compelling. And the claws, if you will, the claws. And I want everybody to know that the majority of the panels I've seen, and I would call them storytelling panels, consider this almost like a diorama of ancient activity and ancient alien activity. The human sacrifice and the alien sacrifice is predominant. Now, what do we see in the United States, ladies and gentlemen? We see people calling for the beheading of Christians and of conservatives. I personally was given the list. Doug and various people have the list. And so, you know, when we talk about the book of Revelation, it's talking about the altar with those beheaded for the testimony of Jesus as a heavenly setting. And ladies and gentlemen, this is why it is incumbent upon Tom Horn. I know this is one of his motivational, if you will, passions. It's my motivational passion, because the most important thing is that, like, for instance, the lions in the back of me, God wants us to be as bold as lions. And these things are subject to the name of Jesus if you are a functional faith person. But if you think you can just go out there because you attend Sunday school and take them on, you can't do that. And people get mad at me saying this because there's presumptive faith, there's assumptive faith, and then there's real faith. And so what, again, is critical, and I keep using that word, if something's critical, it's also dangerous. Critical usually has a time frame associated with it, not all the time. Reactors, when they go critical, nuclear reactors, that means they're melting down. The core is melting down. Fukushima is a good example. There's a time before the reactor begins to go critical and it blows up, or it basically melts down into the earth and pollutes all the water. But the point is that, again, the purpose of releasing this stuff is to thank you. You won't find it on the internet. Oh, you might find somebody that describes it or similar, but you'll never find it. And I can tell you this, as a filmmaker, that's what I get out of this. I want you to know this. The money goes to the people that found the artifacts. They said, you mean the gringo doesn't want money? My guy said, no, the gringo doesn't want money. He wants the film rights. He wants to tell your story. That's what this is all about. And once again, I consider this the greatest archaeological find of the 21st century, because this is going to blow the lid on the alien cover-up and cover-over. And also, ladies and gentlemen, the entire Martian cosmological, if you will, catastrophe that pretty much destroyed Lucifer's planet Astra, or Rahab, between the orbit of Mars and Jupiter, is portrayed on a half a millennium, and we're dating it as the best we can. Not we, I don't date stuff, but we got scientists all over the world that are basically wanting to, I'll say it, release the information they have. But when you've got a diorama and absolutely can time it by celestial events, by the proximal distance between the planets, and Tom, they also show a, if you will, a time tunnel or a wormhole between planets, and it's amazing. But on the bottom of that, there's the god Anubis, an Egyptian god. So you're going, pyramids built by aliens? And I don't believe they're built by Hebrews. Maybe Saqqara, because it's a step pyramid. But, go ahead and take it, because we're running into the time where you got to get going. I can finish.
Yeah, I do got to get out of here, but I want to say a couple of things very fast. You mentioned the alien star child, and you mentioned Anubis. So let me see if I can say something about that very quick. The alien star child reminds me, Steve, of the interviews that I did with Guy Consul Lugnall. So here you have the top astronomer for the Vatican, right? He did agree. I did personally 4 interviews with him. And when he found out where that was coming from, he cut me off. He later tried to deny that he told me some of the things that he did, but it doesn't matter, because he had given me his book on intelligent life in the universe, which he wrote. And then the minute it came out, the Vatican pulled it, but it didn't matter. He gave me his own PDF, which I've been making available at no cost to people, because the only quotes I made of him in the book Exa Vaticana are from his own book. So it left him in a place where he could not run from what he had said and from what the Vatican actually believes. So with regard to the alien star child, there was a point where Consul Magno, so I asked him, like, okay, you guys are talking about like our space brothers, you know, Pope Benedict is talking about this now. You've got Opus Dei level theologians writing doctrine, at the Vatican's, top university that is supposed to be used for what? Preparing the world? I mean, some of this stuff is astonishing. Tanzella Needy, the priest, writing doctrine saying that there is information that is coming from an extraterrestrial source that is going to cause us to have to change everything we thought we've ever believed about the gospel. Where are you guys coming from? This seems like a giant setup. So I asked Consul Magno about it. And he says, well, hey, look, right? The Bible talks about extraterrestrials, but then he points to the story of the Nephilim from the Bible as an example of the kind of space saviors that man is soon going to look for salvation. This is in his own book, Intelligent Life in the Universe. That's the quote I took was from the book, but it's what he told me in the private interview. It was an incredible assertion. And so I asked him about it, but that was only toppled by what he then said next, which is also in his book. In quoting John 10:16, he says, well, look, the Bible says, another sheep I have, which are not of this fold, them also I must bring, and they will hear my voice, and they shall be one fold and one shepherd. Then he goes on to write this in his book. Perhaps, therefore, it is not so far-fetched to see the second person of the Trinity, the Word, who was present in the beginning, John 1:1, coming to lay down his life and take it up again, John 10:18. Listen, not only as the Son of Man, but also as a child of other races, end quote. So he uses that to refer to these alien species. But Steve, I'm also going to go where no man has ever gone before. Because as you know, I personally believe, in fact, I produced a documentary film called Belly of the Beast. I personally believe that Antichrist is going to be revived from his deadly head wound in the crypt that's beneath the floor of the rotunda in the U.S. Capitol Dome. But how many people understand that the U.S. Capitol Dome is actually an Antichrist parody of the death, burial, and resurrection of Jesus Christ? Jesus dies. According to the scripture, he goes into the underworld. He presents himself there to those 72 fallen watchers that are bound according to the book of Enoch and quoted by Peter and Jude in the New Testament. He presents himself to them. Well, when you look at the apotheosis of Washington in the dome of the U.S. Capitol, where George Washington is becoming the Osiris, he's rising into that pagan heaven. But at the base of it, there are 72 pentagrams. It forms a stargate. Steve, you talk about a stargate. The most powerful stargate on planet Earth is the U.S. Capitol Dome. And it is a stargate that allows for reversing into the pagan heaven of Osiris, but also coming back from the pagan heaven of Osiris into this current world. Jesus dies. He presents himself to the 72 angels, and yet it's parodied here in the U.S. Capitol Dome. Now, in the underworld of Osiris, there are different keys that open the doors to the regions of the underworld, and Anubis, that you mentioned, is one of the key individuals that hold the keys to the 12 gates that are mentioned, like in the Egyptian text, the Book of the Dead and all that. He's one of the ones that hold the keys down there. What does it have to do with Jesus? Well, Jesus rises from the dead in Revelation 1:18. He says, I'm not only alive, I now have the keys to death and the grave. Paul, in 1 Corinthians 2:8, says that the princes, the 72, the princes of this world and their influence, they would not have crucified the Lord of glory if they would have known what he was going to do, right? But then beneath your feet in the U.S. Capitol dome is the crypt. And by the way, it's empty. The tomb there is empty. He is not here, for he is risen into the heaven of Osiris. All of it is an antichrist parody of Jesus. But we know that when Antichrist comes, he's going to parody everything that was Jesus. Jesus performed miracles, he'll perform miracles. Jesus says, unless you eat of my flesh and my blood, you have no part with me in the kingdom of heaven. Well, Antichrist is going to do that too. It's going to happen in the form of a virus, and it's going to be that Antichrist is the only one who is immune to a virus like COVID that's going to bring the whole world to their knees. But unless you take this virus, this vaccine that is derived from his flesh and blood, participate in this black communion, you're not going to survive. Here's what Consul Magno told me. He says, quote, perhaps it's not so far-fetched to see the second person of the Trinity, the Word, in the beginning, John 1:1, coming to lay down his life and take it up again as not only as the Son of Man, but also as a child of other races. So that caused me to ask him, do Vatican scholars like you actually believe that Jesus might have been the star child of an alien race? Is that what you're saying? Do you and other Jesuits, do you secretly hold that the virgin birth was in reality an abduction scenario in which Mary was impregnated by E.T. giving birth to the hybrid Jesus? And more importantly, if you believe that, is the second coming then the return of a star child, an alien? Is that how you're kind of putting all of this stuff together? Well, he couldn't run from what he told me. And again,
now, I know that, Cliff High is picking up a lot of it up, and I can't say it. Cliff High and his Twitter feed and stuff is talking about Antarctica. At Branson 2 or 3 years ago, and I don't remember quite candidly now, but I made the statement that Mars and Antarctica are inextricably entwined. And you're going to be hearing about those. You're going to be seeing great revelations about Mars. You're going to see some astonishing stuff. When Tom was talking about, Doug, the whole situation with Operation High Jump, that's what I detailed in Empire Beneath the Ice. Now, I want to talk to you about that empire because, first of all, Admiral Byrd was one of the most decorated military men in the world. And I'm going to read this so I don't blow it, okay? And I apologize for my eyes. I have to look off screen. But what people don't understand is this, that James Forrestal, the first Secretary of Defense, was thrown out the third floor of the Bethesda Naval Hospital. What's interesting, Bethesda, the pool of Bethesda, were the first one into the water that after the angel troubled it would be healed. And we all know the story of what Jesus did to the man that couldn't drag himself to the water in time. He healed him. So I'm going to talk to you about three people and talk to you about.
Thank you.
I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, Steve.
Tricky wasn't feeling well, so he had an early night.
I made a mistake there. I was talking off air. Sorry about that.
Okay. Well, ladies and gentlemen, a lot of people don't understand this. That the OSS, Office of Strategic Services, I think, was the forerunner of the CIA. And because Admiral Byrd was the one that encountered the Nazis in Antarctica, in literally flying saucers that shot down some of the aircraft that were on the aircraft carrier down there. That was a full-scale carrier task force group in that time. By the way, somebody was kind enough, I think it was God bless Jamie Walden, but he actually knew somebody. I said, I don't care about their names, Jimmy. And they actually had in their grandfather's diary the names of the five pilots that lost their lives. So this was in Antarctica. We're fighting the Nazis at the official end of the war. But here's what Buzz Aldrin had this, first of all, Admiral Byrd, then Buzz Aldrin, and then you're going to have your mind blown by the Jesuit, one of the head Jesuits that was in Antarctica. From the debriefing of Admiral Byrd, this is going to be in your report, by the OSS, which was also the CIA starting to form, on March 11th, 1947, Admiral Byrd was taken into a meeting in the Pentagon, and after some basic talk, the room was cleared, except for Admiral Byrd and two persons, one from the OSS and one from the newly formed CIA. The first question which Admiral Byrd was asked was as follows: who precisely did you meet in Antarctica? Remember, the official narrative is he said he met the king of the world or the master of the world. Now listen to this. It's going to be important for you as you follow, and I'm staying linear. The Byrd reply, it was Lord Lucifer, master of the world. The question asked, what precisely did Lord Lucifer tell you? The Byrd replied, I was told that the USA government was to follow all his instructions and that entities would come to the USA government at the correct time and inform the president or others precisely what would be required of them. The third question, were you told anything else by Lord Lucifer, the master of the world? The Byrd reply was, I was told to give the message I just gave you, then remain silent, as my job was to be the messenger. The last statement from the two people, OSS, CIA, boy, does this sound familiar? You are not to discuss this with anyone ever. It is the most secret information of the USA government. Is this clear? Simply, yes, sir. At that point, the meeting is ended. Now, we've all heard about the different people that have gone to Antarctica. Excuse me, I'm going to have some water. Thank you, Jesus. I'm not taking any blessings for granted. Here's what really happened to Buzz Aldrin in America, not in America, in Antarctica. Buzz landed and he was taken to an area which contains pyramids, which, like the Egyptian pyramid, have precision edges, not basically stratovolcanoes. He then took photos of the pyramids, and then he was suddenly unable to breathe when the moment before he was in no physical stress at all. He goes to take pictures of the pyramids, and he can't breathe. He stops breathing. He was then evacuated as a medical mercy mission with no true public comment other than he had trouble breathing. He then tweeted a message, "It feels like evil itself," after which he had a second attack in the hospital, and inability to breathe, and promptly removed the tweet. Remember all that, ladies and gentlemen? His personal testimony to people upon returning was never made public, but here it is. Now, I want to make a statement. I could not know this. I don't know Buzz Aldrin, love to talk to him. There are people all over the world that are getting visions and dreams from God, but they're on the wrong side of the fence. In other words, they're serving Lord Lucifer. And here's what he said to the people that he went into detail with. I saw pyramids made of shiny metal-like surface, which felt so evil that I could not come close to the object to fully investigate them. And as I think carefully about what I saw, I felt a danger to the whole world from the object and the entities who made the objects. Also, I saw one thing which I felt that I'd seen on the way to the moon, but I did not comment about it because it was some large cigar-shaped objects, precisely like what I had seen in space. But the objects were sitting behind the pyramids as if the evil did not want me to see them. Listen to this. There's a common thread here. When I took some photos of the pyramid of the objects behind them in the area, suddenly, again, I could not breathe and passed out, when the moment before there was nothing wrong with me. Now, here is critical because you're going to find out something very telling. I knew that at that point, Buzz Aldrin speaking, I entered a place of true evil and danger for the whole world. At his debriefing, Buzz Aldrin was bluntly told he was not to share this information with anyone, or he would be promptly killed. Thank God God intervenes. Just to help you understand the entities who took the statements of Buzz Aldrin were one from the NSA and one from the, how do I describe this? The secret ruling government of Lucifer under the ice. That's the easiest way I can do it. Now, ladies and gentlemen, this is what's really interesting. The head of the Jesuit church almost 4 years ago, you can look it up, traveled to Antarctica in December of 2016. He met with Lucifer, and here are his comments from his own notes. Your throne and the room are more beautiful than was ever told to me. I bless you, my Lord Lucifer. How may I best serve you? Lucifer commanded, I will send you entities to instruct you as required, and you are to follow them exactly per instructions given to you. Yes, my Lord Lucifer, I understand you and obey you. Now, I'm going to give you a little bit of a puzzle. Two of the most evil witches in 2016, who made a secret joint visit to Antarctica to meet with Lucifer. Upon arrival to the throne room, both women exclaimed, "This is more beautiful and wonderful than any words could express to us, Lord Lucifer." They both bowed and knelt before Lucifer and asked, "How may we serve you, Lord Lucifer?" Notice the reply. I will send you entities with precise instructions for you to follow, even until death, to accomplish the instructions. This is clear. They both said, yes, Lord Lucifer, we understand you exactly. At that point, they were taken from the throne room and sent to their plane back to the USA. One thing is totally consistent. In all the meetings was the words were short and to the point and not drawn out, but very precise and basically consistent across all the meetings. The Apostle Paul talks about even though we know the promises of God, we don't see them all fulfilled right now. When Jesus was tempted by the devil in the wilderness, he was taken up into the top of the temple, and Lucifer said, all these kingdoms will be yours if you but bow down and worship me. Jesus rebuked the devil, obviously. He didn't argue with the devil because when Adam and Eve sinned, that supernatural creation of Almighty God that they had, listen, ladies and gentlemen, they had instantaneous word of knowledge, word of wisdom, because God had created them, obviously limited in powers. They couldn't have the omnipotent, omniscient, and what is the other one? Omnipotence, omniscient, and all-powerful. Maybe there's another one, all-knowing. Every place, all-knowing at all times. And I may have forgotten one, I'm sorry. This stuff really gets me going. But what the key is everybody that goes to Antarctica, and I want to make a clarification here. Do I believe that Lucifer's throne room, literally on Earth, is under the Antarctic ice? Absolutely. Absolutely. Remember where Pergamos, Jesus talks in Revelation about where Satan seats? Where Satan is seated? The people that have told me over the years of what Lucifer's throne room looked like, how could they know? They've been there, I guess. They said, Steve, tell the Christians the deception will be so great by the beauty and the brilliance of the deceptive nature of Lucifer that people who look on him will just be astonished, as these people were. The three things they had in common, only Buzz Aldrin, God bless him, did not, to my knowledge, go into Lucifer's throne room. But the emanation of evil, and by the way, it's huge. It's measured in the hundreds of square miles. It has stargates coming in from all points of the universe. All points in the universe. People gate in and gate out. That means they come in through stargates, they leave through stargates. How many can really imagine this? And how many can really accept this? I couldn't until I prayed about it. until I started matching things from my past, what people had told me. And then the eureka moment came when I understand Ezekiel 28. I want to read this. This is really important. Really important. Starting at verse 11, it's talking about an earthly king of Tyrus, Tyrus, and that's talking about the supernatural one. And you'll see how this applies to Lucifer. You remember the Lucifer telescope at Mount Graham? You remember luciferase and the enzyme that's changing men into monsters? Oh, and if you got time, just type in xenobots and see the life form that has been created in the lab using nanotechnology and nanites specifically, and they call them xenobots. And then Doug, you were so kind in my book Xenogenesis, written, 7 years ago, to give me the box of chocolates. And again, my brother Will, God bless you, Spec Ops, just a great brother, was at the dying deathbed of a former director of the Central Intelligence Agency. I think he was associate director. And the CIA guy dying wanted to make his peace with God, and he gave Will all this stuff. And it's in chapter 13 of Xenogenesis. I think it's called Under the Rainbow. At that point, I said it was the most single important revelation I'd been given on the air, while I was on talk radio in my entire life. Xenogenesis, the creation of xenobots, adding a component separate and distinct from human DNA. If you notice the cover of the book, it has a flying saucer, has a DNA strand. It's pretty cool. Duncan Long, who, God bless him, went to be with the Lord years ago, was the artist and just a phenomenal talent. And a baby being born, the offspring of the aliens. Let me read this to you. Pray about it. Take it to the Lord in prayer. This has everything to do with Antarctica. Moreover, the word of the Lord came unto me, saying, Son of man, take up a lamentation upon the king of Tyrus, and say unto him, Thus saith the Lord God, Thou sealest up the sum, full of wisdom and perfect in beauty. You have been in Eden, the garden of God. Every precious stone was thy covering. The sardius, the topaz, the diamond, the beryl, the onyx, the jasper, the sapphire, the emerald, and the carbuncle, and gold. The workmanship of thy tabrets and thy pipes was prepared in thee, and the day that thou wast created. Lucifer was a created being, but he's also, ladies and gentlemen, he's not an angel. You are the anointed cherub that covereth. And I have set thee so. That was upon the holy mount of God. You walked up and down in the midst of the stones of fire. Idiom for the different planets. Thou wast perfect in thy ways from the day you were created, till iniquity was found in thee. By the multitude of thy merchandise, they have filled the midst of the earth with violence, and thou hast sinned. Therefore I will cast thee as profane out of the mountain of God, and I will destroy thee, O covering cherub, from the midst of the stones of fire. Remember when Jesus said he saw Satan fall like lightning? I think it's Isaiah 14. I'll check on that. But here's what I want you to understand, ladies and gentlemen. There is a cohesive reason that all the stuff in Mexico, all the stuff in Egypt, all the stuff I've written about, and by the way, I want to make this clear. The new DVD has been re-edited, okay? It's in stock now. Forbidden History Revealed, the Egyptian Present, the Americas, and the Pacific Rim, the Great Smithsonian Cover-Up. If you want to see my statement that real history is covered up and covered over, just like what's going on right now in Antarctica, just like what's going on in Mars and on the moon, you got to understand this gentleman, a brother of mine, I'll just call his first name Gary, and it's, not Gary Cole, just to take that off the plate, was allowed to see the secret warehouses that are in the Smithsonian. He saw giant bones, but the most important thing he saw were all the Egyptian artifacts, in which, if you know the Grand Canyon, the majority of the features that are the biggest are all named for Egyptian gods. The Temple of Anubis, if you will. The Temple of Osiris. Isis. Isn't that interesting? I said, why? One of the most famous geologists in history, this should blow your mind, Dr. Troy Payway, P-E-W-E, set up the Arizona, I think, University of Arizona geology department, used to take float trips down the Grand Canyon. The eyewitness interview that we have on this, nobody's ever produced it before. This is God. This is a bragging rights. Steve, if you want my people, I'll bring the people that know to tell you what my people need to know. So when the students started asking Dr. Troy Payway about why are all these landforms, and from thousands of years ago, named for Egyptian gods and goddesses. You know what the most famous geologist, one of the most famous in the world, said? He said, for the interesting items that were found there. Flash back in time with me, I'll take you to a gentleman who was the president of Egypt, late 1800s, guy by the name of Nubar Pasha, P-A-S-H-A. By the way, this is all in this. He makes a request to the Smithsonian and the U.S. government saying, will you please return all of the Egyptian artifacts that have been found in the Americas, especially North America, to us, but with the giant bones and mummies, just destroy them. By the way, when my eyewitness was in the Smithsonian, and he's a Christian, you guys, loves God really, really, really a lot. Proof is in the pudding, too, in his life. When he was taken to the Smithsonian, he was shown the giant bones. He was showing Egyptian mummies taken from the Grand Canyon, being put into like a CAT scanner. And people who are security cleared from all over the world come to these secret labs in the Smithsonian. 4 floors deep, I think. Maybe one was 8 floors. And off of each floor was tunnels. And the tunnels, they're huge tunnels, by the way, were rooms with artifacts. The gentleman who gave my friend the tour said, in these warehouses, plural, we have one of everything we believe that's ever been on the earth. And it is one thing they don't have. But what was more interesting, Dr. Troy Payway wanted, and when he died, his brain to be put in a vat of whatever preservative, alcohol, formaldehyde, and be placed next to John Wesley Powell. John Wesley Powell didn't believe, or didn't want the public to believe, that's a better way of saying it, that there had been diffusion thousands of years ago. In other words, the Egyptians sailed the ocean blue, and so did the Chinese. And oh, by the way, the island of Maui in Hawaii is named for the navigator of Captain Rada, 250 BC, an Egyptian captain. The amount of intelligence, the amount of understanding. As you read the book of Enoch, you'll find out it was given. It was presented to mankind by fallen angels. That's what the book of Enoch pretty much is all about. And then the book of Giants. The book of Giants is already being, and by the way, these are just fragments of the Dead Sea Scrolls. But I just posted a story, I think about, I don't know, a week ago, where they believe there are new scrolls to be found. And I believe those scrolls come under the, if you will, the admonition of Daniel the prophet, when the angels said, seal it up, Daniel, for that is, seal it up, Daniel, for that is for, a given time in the future. I'm not quoting it word for word because my mind's going too fast. Slow down, Steve. The things that Doug has presented to you allowed Tom Horn, myself, the Daniel Holdings, and others to present are absolutely unique to this platform. Look, I've been on Coast to Coast, I think, as much as any guest I've ever had. I talked to the producer, George's producer, Lisa. I think that's a true statement. I'm not talking about the people call in, for 5 minutes and give a health update or, travel update or whatever. But over the years, the benefit of being on Doug's platform has been a blessing to so many. Now, we have our critics. Everybody's got a critic. But ladies and gentlemen, we know stuff. And we're both seeking verification. Doug does, I do. And by the way, Tom Horn is really connected in the world, and God's given him favor. And why certain evil men tell him what they tell him, my jaw just drops. The point is that we wanted to do this special broadcast in order to thank you and to ask you to support the Hagman Report. When I send out, this special report, I'd like to ask you to honor the copyrights. It'll be copyrighted. Just simply because in this world of podcasting, in talk radio, I can't tell you how many times people quote back my words, but somebody steals the words and calls me a liar. I believe the proof is in the fruit. It's not a question of judge not lest ye be judged. It's a question specifically of where's the fruit? Where's the fruit? Where's the fruit? So, ladies and gentlemen, this Saturday, I want you to, obviously tomorrow is Sunday, Saturday the 6th, and I want you just to ponder generosity. I'm asking those of you who can't afford it. Listen, this isn't a shakedown request. This is to keep Doug on the air, and I'll make this clear. We're taking extraordinary efforts to avoid the very mechanisms that can take him down on his website, take me down, or taking me down. The satellite network will be explained to you. By the way, I'm just getting in real time. This will go up as a link on Doug's website to the satellite phone store, mine too. And there will be a new company, and it's Galileo Communications. Galileo's not spelled like the former astronomer of Italy. It's spelled kind of like that, and it is already trademarked, so you can't go out and try and register it and sell it back to us. But it's a pretty ambitious project. If it weren't for the heart, again, of a couple of the owners, you listen to me interview Eric, and you haven't heard Tina yet, but they're so convinced of the internet shutdown, of different power outages, and every weekend it seems like, what was it? Apple was out yesterday, or some of the big networks were down. People flip out when they can't get a hold of somebody on Faces of Death book. Can't tell you how many people are my friends are on Faces of Death book. I got an email today. I'm not rebuking anybody. But ladies and gentlemen, you need to know the lateness of the hour. Jesus said, and here, I'll close with this. Jesus said there's never been a time like it, nor would be again, except those days be shortened for us, the elect's sake, those of us who have been washed in the blood of the Lamb, who have the testimony of Jesus, who haven't betrayed the Lord. One of my dear research associates sent me an email today saying this pastor's talking about the end times, and now he's talking about a cruise, I don't know, coming up in whatever cruise time. What is that? The spring into the summer? Are you kidding me? I don't believe that pastor is using what I would call wisdom in applying the lateness of the hour, the times. And, here's the thing, ladies and gentlemen, all this alien, the fallen angel stuff, I only presented as underlying validation, not the validation, but illustration, that's a better word, illustration of the Word of God. When I just read to you Ezekiel 28, it's talking about Lucifer being the most beautiful being in the universe. It's not the typical devil, hell, cauldrons, burning pots. Now that is true. But Lucifer's kingdom, remember this, he was the brightest, he was the most glorious. And when I look,
or I could do Tom Horn, which is what I was going to, LA Mazzurli. We'll do that instead. Hang on. Here it is.
But they are fallen angels. They are utterly demonic, evil. It's the Luciferian endgame. So I think it's twofold. And I also
Hello and welcome to the Sharpening Report. Today we welcome back returning guest and friend of the show, L.A. Marzulli, to talk with us about his new film, streaming for free at lamarzulli.net/store. UFO Disclosure, The Coming Great Deception, and the Luciferian Endgame. L.A., welcome back to the show. How are you doing?
Really good to see your face, Josh. And we'll be talking face-to-face actually next Monday, which I'm looking forward to.
Yes, yeah, I am too. This'll be good. We haven't actually seen each other in a while. We have a super secret filming project that we'll be working on together. I'm really excited about that. And people watching the show, you'll just have to wait for more information. We'll be putting information out on Skywatch TV, of course, here at Sharpening Report, and I'm sure LA will as well on his website. We are living in a crazy time. We're actually living in a time right now when the government is admitting to investigating the UFO phenomenon. And even today, that's kind of old news. It's been going on for a couple of years now. Why do you think now the government is admitting to this?
Well, there's a couple of ideas here, a couple of scenarios that might do as well to look at. First of all, we know, let's go back in time. So when Orson Welles ran with his War of the Worlds radio show, he caused utter panic, complete panic. People jumped out of windows. I mean, I'm being facetious, but I mean, people were panicked. They thought that Martians had landed. So when Roswell happened, and unlike some people that don't believe Roswell happened, okay? I've spoken to two people. One, Dr. Jesse Marcel Jr., who was as close to the event as you could possibly get, because his father, Marcel Sr., was a 509 bombing group security officer. He knows what a weather balloon looked like. So to say that Marcel Sr. mistook the wreckage in Mac Brazel's farm for a weather balloon is an absolute insult to Marcel's intelligence and his integrity. So I spoke to Jesse Marcel Jr. By the time I got there, his father had passed away a few years. And he told me when he was 12 years old, 13, his father woke everybody up, he and his mother, at like 2:30 in the morning. Mistake number one, you never wake the wifey up at 2:30 in the morning. As husbands, we all know that. If the house is burnt down, you wake the wifey up. Otherwise, you never wake the wifey up, okay? Unless it's absolutely something that's groundbreaking. And he had spread the material out on the kitchen, and I quote, "What you're looking at, Jesse, my son, Jesse Marcel Jr., you may never see again. This is from another world." And Jesse Marcel Jr. handled the objects, the wreckage. That's witness number one. Witness number two, which was in a film which it didn't translate into this film. We may use it somewhere else. We interviewed two pastors, a husband and wife team, who interviewed Colonel Hill, and they were like in a hospice relationship with him. They knew him for about 3 months, maybe longer, I don't know, but they knew him for a period of time. And Colonel Hill had like 3 or 4 degrees. He was highly intelligent, and he was end of life. After he told them the story I'm about to tell you, he passed away. So it was end of life discussion. Of course, I'm down a deep rabbit hole here talking about why, but I'm going someplace with it. You just have to ask that question, didn't you? So Colonel Hill stated on the record that he was flown to Roswell, New Mexico after the crash, and they were one alien body was alive, and he tried to communicate with it. The wreckage was taking the right path. Everything that we knew from hearsay was basically vetted by Colonel Hill in a deathbed confession. So getting back on point, Roswell was real. So you've got all these guys sitting in there going, what do we do with this? there were two schools of thought. Well, we should release this to the public. I think Forrestal was of that mindset. Of course, he committed suicide by jumping out of the 7th floor window. And the autopsy that he was exhumed decades later, and the autopsy showed that, well, maybe not so fast, citizen, you know. So I'm on coffee. Coffee's my favorite drug. So anyway.
Mine too.
This drone is not a toy. This is an extremely high-tech 7,500
Makes me happy and sometimes funny. So the bottom line is this. You had guys like Forrestal, which were saying, we need to release this to the American public. And then you had the prevailing paradigm, the old guard, who said, not a chance. And they put the kibosh on everything, and they spun everything. Roswell's a weather balloon. You know, it's what you saw was the planet Venus reflecting off a weather balloon, caught up in a flock of geese, you know.
Swamp gas somewhere in there.
and swamp gas. I mean, it's just like, you know, you can't make this stuff up. So the old guard now, because it's over 70 years since Roswell, the old guard's dead.
Mm-hmm.
They're dead. They're not there anymore. So the paradigm is shifted. And they go, this has been going on. We can't keep doing this. There's way too much evidence. And I also think that they are being pressured by, you know, the so-called extraterrestrial aliens, which they are not. They are fallen angels. They are utterly demonic, evil. It's the Luciferian endgame. So I think it's twofold. And I also think it plays into Satan's endgame strategy, where, okay, now's the time. So it's, and when this happened in 2017, it was released on Tucker Carlson's show. Commander David Fravor, a former F-18 pilot, is on Tucker Carlson's show. And Carlson's going, you know, UFOs used to be the stuff of conspiracy theories and tinfoil hat wearing people. But maybe not anymore. And and the Commander David Fravor joins us. It was a triptych. They had Tucker here, Fravor in the middle, and over here. Classified film with a tic-tac shaped object. When asked on Tucker Carlson's show by Tucker, Commander David Fravor, what do you think this was? Fravor looks right at the camera and says, whatever this was not from this earth, was not from our planet. So, and this also begs the question, how does a complete unknown entity like Commander David Fravor wind up on Tucker Carlson's show anyway? How does that work? He doesn't have a book. He has no YouTube following. Doesn't have any followers at all. Now he does maybe, but no book, no DVD, no nothing. He's an unknown. Who's got the power to do that? Why Tucker? Because Tucker's audience, for the most part, is conservative Christian. That's who watches the show. So they roll it up. They run it up on Tucker Carlson's show to see what the reaction is. Flatline. Church utterly asleep, totally ambivalent, except L.A. Marzulli and a few of our peers like yourself, we're jumping up and down. Oh my God, did you see what just happened on Tucker Carlson? Oh, I can't believe it. And that was the beginning of disclosure. And that's 2017. Here we are in 2021.
Yeah, and this is something that you've been saying for years, ever since I remember a decade ago by now, probably, when I first became aware of your materials and stuff. You've been on the trail of UFOs for a long time, and you've always said that a day was coming when the world would get official disclosure of UFOs. Are we living in those times now? Is this official disclosure, or is this a precursor to an official disclosure event in the future?
Well, your answer on that would be as good as mine. I don't know where it's going to go. I mean, they released the thing, typical total government's doublespeak. I just love this. Well, we can't really decide that these are aliens, but we're not sure they could be. So it's like doublespeak. You know, well, 9/11 just happened because planes flew into it. But Building 7 collapses at free fall speed, which is physically impossible, absolutely physically impossible. Justification, it was that magic bullet in Dallas, right?
Oh, yeah. I think there are some tumultuous times ahead. You know, there are some, too. I mean, even within the church, the opinions on this are split. There are some that would say that this is all spiritual. It's all deceptive projections. I was even raised in that kind of environment. You know, Josh, UFOs, don't you know that's just demons putting pictures up in the sky? That's not real. But pictures up in the sky aren't going to set radars off and things. You know that. But people think that these things aren't really there. They're showing up on radar. It shows that this has a physical component to it. Is there anything about the UFO phenomenon that is spiritual? And if so, then how do we reconcile it with the physicality of these crafts?
Well, here's the deal, and I know who you're talking about, and I've gone, and I'm not going to get into a contest here and disparage anyone. I don't go there. But certain individuals have written hit pieces on me for years, all over the internet, said some really nasty things, and I never respond. And that's I come from the Tom Warren School of Deflection, and I think I got an A in that course because I followed Tom's lead. So I just don't respond. Why give him a platform? Why? It's like water off a duck's back at this point. You can think whatever you want to think. You can say whatever you want to say. I really don't care. Okay, let's walk through it. So we know in the Bible, Elisha is sitting there with his servant. I was going to say Benghazi, but it's not Benghazi. No, Gehazi. So and goes, Lord, open Gehazi's eyes. So Gehazi goes out. They're surrounded by the Syrian army, right? And Gehazi goes out and goes, oh my gosh, his eyes are finally open. I see the chariots of fire. Well, what are the chariots of fire, folks? You know, what is the divine taxi, as Mike Kaiser likes to talk about? What is that comes and picks up Elijah and others? What are we looking at here? See, Christians have this truncated view of the supernatural. So, and I remember we're talking about this in one of the conferences. Oh, it's just all supernatural, spiritual stuff, blah, blah, blah. Okay, let's walk through this, Ezekiel. So the angels walk in, and they've got slaughter weapons. I suppose those slaughter weapons are just completely spiritual, right? Nonsense. And the other angels got an inkhorn. It's not spiritual at all, just technology. Book of Enoch, which is a pseudepigraphical book attributed to Enoch, which is not part of our canon, but is quoted in our canon, basically states that certain and fallen angels came down and gave us technology, weapon making. Well, that implies if they're showing us, then they know how to do all that. Who's building the New Jerusalem? How does it descend to earth? Is it the giant mothership of motherships? In some ways it is. You know, let's face it, it's descending. That sounds like a mothership to me. So it's look, it's not either or, it's both and. There are supernatural dynamics to it. For instance, when you're abducted, they will float you through the window. And every single abductee that goes near the window goes, are they going to open the window? That's what they think. And they don't open the window. You go through the window. Well, Jesus walks through the wall when he appears, okay? The angel who appears to Peter manipulates space, time, matter, and energy. He unlocks the prison doors. Peter's chains fall off of him. The guards are switched off. The prison door opens up. He's manipulating space, time, and matter, and energy. Is that supernatural? You bet your boots it is. Absolutely. But there's also physicality in there. The angel is there with Peter. In the abduction phenomenon, you can get a needle inserted in your private parts. Absolutely. Women, ovum are taken, sperm is taken from the men. You are probed in places you don't want to get probed. And they do these things because they know it creates the greatest fear, and they live off the fear. They live off the fear. That's what the whole cattle mutilation thing's about. So it's not either or, it's both and. The ships are metallic, and I'll tip my hand here. I'm actually going to an undisclosed location on the 20th, sometime this month, and I will be meeting with a gentleman who has metal from a UFO, which will be in our second film.
Wow. And so in Europe, so somebody's building these things. Who's building these? Who's piloting these crafts? And what do they want?
Well, it's not extraterrestrial from Zeta Reticuli, for starters. This is fallen angel technology. Gary Stearman had an encounter with a very large UFO which changed his paradigm completely and probably saved his life. He also had 3 hours of missing time. Now, he wasn't abducted, but he had space-time displacement. When this thing flew next to him, it came like this and then flew next to him, there was a space-time displacement. So for Gary, he was just on track to Lubbock, Texas. When he got up there, he's 3 hours late. There's no way his plane can stay up that long. It's impossible. So he had an encounter with and this is where it gets confusing, that both sides can have this craft. And you say, well, why is that, LA? Well, maybe, just maybe, not all, we know that there's a hierarchy of the angelic host. So some can do some things, some cannot do some things. For instance, why is it that we don't see the stones of Sacsayhuaman and Ollantaytambo? Why isn't that duplicated later on? And that's a really interesting question. Is it because the ones that were able to do that are locked up? I don't know. I mean, we get this much of a picture that's really large. So we see through a glass darkly. But to think that angels don't have technology is just ridiculous, because they do. And I just cited several examples.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. And do you, so in light of that, and knowing that the government probably isn't looking at this phenomenon the way that we would, do you believe that the government should be investigating UFOs? And if so, do you think they should be going about it differently than they are now?
Everything that I know about it from the government's, they're on board with the law. We've had several whistleblowers that have come up to us at conferences, and basically some come on the record, we disguise their voice, pixelate their face. Others won't come on the record but tell me the story. We are right now, as I speak, working side by side with the Greys. There's no doubt about that, and have been. We allowed them access to the population. No doubt about that. Just like the Book of Enoch, that quid pro quo. Well, we'll give you some of these craft. You can have fun back engineering. Welcome to Valdezar. Look, I've been, as a Christian, I became a Christian 41 years ago. I've been studying UFOs ever since I saw them when I was 12. I was on the other side of the aisle and believed, like the ancient astronaut theory, like Eric von Daniken. When I read that von Daniken's book when it came out, that's what I believed until I became a Christian at 30. That's 41 years ago. I'm 70 years old. When I became a Christian,
boost your physique with this super effective new gadget. These military special forces.
For 10 years, Josh, all that was laid aside. It was like, okay, you were in that world. Now we're going to reprogram you. Bible, 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 Bible. That became my worldview. Endless. Anytime a church was open, I was there. Reread the Bible, reread it again and again. Commentary. Listen to Chuck Missler every day. I mean, my day consisted when I had my cabinet shop, for instance. On the way to work, I'd be listening to program. In the shop, we'd have, because everyone was a Christian. In the shop, we'd have all these teaching tapes or radio stations on all day long. So the machines were going, we're making cabinets and all this, but there's always Christian stuff, listening to people, Southwest Radio Church with Noah Hutchins. I mean, and there I am in Noah Hutchins' studio being interviewed by him decades later. Go figure. So, I mean, I cut my teeth off on that for like 10 years, especially Chuck Missler, and got the gold medallion award and patting myself on the back here from Chuck. But that was a great honor for me. And when I hit 40 is when the Lord said, you need to go back into this now. And so I did. And that became the beginning, reading Dr. I.D. Thomas's book, The Omega Conspiracy. That started it, which then became all that research and more research. And hats off to David Flynn, because I went to his website continually. And this is on the early days of the internet, where it took you like an hour to download a JPEG. So that became the nexus for the Nephilim trilogy, which, even though it's entitled Nephilim, what it does is it's I'm standing on the shoulders of my mentor, Dr. I.D. Thomas. It takes Genesis 6 and the Nephilim and ties it to the UFO phenomenon. And there was a pastor, a friend, some guy wrote me over the weekend. He was at a conference, and they had a guy speaking there, and I'm not going to mention the guy's name. I don't want to disparage him. But he raised his hand and goes, well, she'll be studying benevolent. And this guy said, no, it's foolishness. So there you go. So my work is foolishness. Dr. I.D.E. Thomas's work, foolishness. Tom Horn's work, foolishness. Your work, foolishness. Chuck Missler's work, foolishness. I mean, it's the blind leading the blind. He has no idea of what is manifesting on the planet. Shame on him for saying something like that where he knows nothing, because it's not. What it is it arms people with what's going on and what's happening today, because this is the coming great deception. The revealing of the so-called extraterrestrial presence is the coming great deception. And Obama said last week, when ET reveals themselves, we'll have new religions. Why would he say that?
Yeah.
And it's one thing to hop on the bandwagon now. Again, I'm not mentioning names like some of these people that all of a sudden they're the experts. You know, I just sit there and just go, you know, what book have you written? Where have you ever lectured about it? You haven't. Just shut up and let people who have actually, the Lord's called to do this, let us come to the forefront, you know? And that's what should be happening. But of course, it's not, because everybody wants to jump on the bandwagon.
Yeah, definitely. And it's only now that this is in the public view where there have been, people like yourself that have been doing this for years prior. I definitely have a lot more to ask. But first, where can people get your film, and why are you making this one available for free for everybody?
Well, I'm going to make the second one available for film. I think that there comes a time where, okay, I'm throwing this out for free because the information is way too vital. People need to know about it. And you would think it would go viral. It hasn't. We've got, I don't know, maybe 65,000 views on our streaming, on our YouTube channel. I think Prophecy Watchers has it up there around 40 or 50. So, you know, we've got combined over 100,000 views, but there's 7 billion people on the planet. So, you know, we're the only Christian film that deals with this stuff right now. I know that, you know, you're making one, and that's why we're going up. We're working on part 2. We've got all the interviews basically done. George Norrie, Nick Pope, Nick Redford, Bill Salas, Gons is there, and other people that come on the record. And I just, you know, we release it for free because if this is true, how can I possibly charge for that? So we are asking people to contribute to part 2, and people are contributing, which is fantastic. And if you want to buy the DVD, that's a different story. We'll still sell it to you 50% off. But you can go to streaming.lamarzulli.net, streaming.lamarzulli.net, and watch the thing for free. And we did that deliberately. Part 2, which we're working on even as I speak, will be also for free.
Excellent. Well, I highly suggest everybody watching go and check that out. We have a lot more to talk about. I want to ask how this might tie into Bible prophecy, but we're going to do that in the members only section because, as LA mentioned before, YouTube has been very delete happy when it comes to our channels and our videos. Actually, the whole Skywatch YouTube channel is gone now. And so we try, on this channel, we try to anticipate things, which is why we have the website. Full versions of every episode is available at dailyrenegade.com if you're a member, or you can get a free trial if you don't know if you want to financially support us yet, you want to check us out, then go for it. Dailyrenegade.com, get a free trial. If you already know that you love us and love what we're doing and want to contribute, then get a membership. You'll get the rest of this full interview instead of the censored version that goes up on YouTube that unfortunately we have to do just to maintain a YouTube channel. But that's okay. We actually get more views on Daily Renegade anyway. So head on over to dailyrenegade.com. In the members only section, we will continue our discussion with L.A. Marzulli.
Okay, guys, I'm out. God bless. See you tomorrow.